Oh no. It's always had a great connection. Hello, God's daughter. Hi. Thanks for joining. Sekou, what's up? Hi, Leah. We're going to get Sekou in right away. Let's see. I see. Hey, Janet. Jeanette. Sekou, what's up?
What up?
Your mass swag. I love it. I love
My
it.
swag. My
How are you?
swag. I'm good.
Let
I'm
me
gonna
try
take
to
this
get
off so you
the,
can hear me. Take
yeah, sorry about that. I covered
this
up.
off so you can hear
Trying
me
to
a
get
little
the
better.
volume up. There we go. Hey,
Yeah.
Lamonia. Oh my goodness. We look, it's so funny. We've been chatting like on text and WhatsApp. We haven't actually seen each other face to face. It's good to see
Right? Right?
you.
Right? Good to see you. Good to see you in this quarantine situation.
Yes,
Coronacation.
yes, Coronication. I love that. I see
Yeah.
Ron joining. Well, let some folks join. I had a couple of people tell me they were coming on. So,
Cool.
but how are you doing? I see you are hanging out and exercising and just doing your thing, being healthy.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like right now is the perfect excuse. Like, why would you not get healthy now when when it could be a life or death issue? Like, there's no better excuse to just get it done, whatever it is. Get healthy, get moving, take your vitamins, find your herbs and spices, all those things that are on your list of things to do that you don't usually do.
Yeah,
Now's the time. Be
I
as
definitely
healthy as
agree.
possible.
I've been trying a lot of different veggie recipes. And
Yeah.
so earlier this week, I had like spinach and avocado, corn. And I was like, this is great. So I am doing those things you suggested. But, the
That's right.
chocolate croissants get me a little bit.
Yeah, you gotta have your treats though. You
So
gotta have your treats,
you have to have a
especially
little,
now. You gotta keep your spirit up. You gotta
yeah,
keep your
you
spirit up.
definitely have to keep your spirit up.
I
So,
got a I got a cinnamon roll yesterday. I can't remember the last time I had a cinnamon roll, but I got one and it
yeah.
was delicious. It was
I think it
delicious.
is. I think it's about balance. Yeah, I think it's about
Yeah,
balance.
absolutely.
You know, let me see. We have a couple of people. We have some friends coming in, um, and we are at the same time as fabulous DJ D Nice,
Oh
which
yeah.
he is. Yes, he's doing a special event for the historically Black colleges. So, and I
Oh
know you're
wow.
yes, and you're a Morehouse grad. So yes, you're going to
Yeah,
have
I'm a Morehouse grad, and I was embedded at Fisk University as an artist in residence when
I didn't.
Corona hit. Matter of fact, my play was the very last student activity at Fisk University before they shut down because of Corona.
I did see that
Yeah,
on
so
Facebook.
so I was here
Amazing.
when it happened, and that's why I'm still here,
Okay. Okay. That's
still here
great.
in Nashville.
Yes,
Yeah,
you have to definitely go represent after this.
yeah,
Catch a
yeah,
little
for sure.
bit.
So
Yeah.
what's he doing exactly? He's raising
So
money for HBCUs.
he is. So I'm not sure
Okay,
what organization, but yeah, it starts at 4, and I'm sure he's been going for a while. So you can go
no
and check
doubt.
that out. Yes, he's been
No
doing his
doubt. No
thing.
doubt. Shout out to D Nice. What
Yeah,
up,
be
D?
nice. We're heading over there afterwards. Well, I'm so glad
Yeah.
we had folks join, and I did have a couple of people. They pinged me at 3 o'clock, and they were like, "Hey, I'm here," and I'm like, "Well, the screening's at 3 on Sekou's page, and we're doing a talk back here." So
All right.
I am going to go ahead and start, and we will have some folks join. But first, I just want to say thank you. We've known each other for a long time, so it's great to
Right.
you're my first official Instagram live. So face to face live.
Yeah. What? What?
Yes, yes, yes.
Let's get it.
So, so for those on the call, SekouWrites is joining us because Sekou has a lot of projects going on, but he's working on his passion project now.
Yeah.
Brown Boy Mad. But before
Yeah.
I do that, I do have to give Sekou an introduction. Being an author, journalist, and playwright. You know, Sekou,
Okay.
and also he has jewelry that he makes. Rocks by Sekou. Rocks by Sekou.
Oh,
So,
rocking the
um,
rock.
yeah,
Rocking the
so
rocks.
multi-talented. He's so
Mhm.
creative. And so I'll introduce myself too. I'm Roz Murphy for those who joined and don't know me. And I am media consultant and producer. And Murphy Media is my company. And so Murphy Muse is a blog that I started a couple years ago. And I focused on film and travel and culinary delights, as I say. But you know, during this sheltering in time, I was noticing a lot of companies just sharing out their digital products and services. So I started collecting that for myself to honestly keep sanity and keep busy. And I was like, I need to share this out. And so I said, let's
Right.
start blogging again. So weekly, I share out a lot of you know, great events, exercising, great on
Yeah.
events like Sekou. So
That's really
Sekou,
good content. It's really good content. If you haven't checked it out yet, please check it out because there's some really good stuff in there. I've checked out a few of the tips and I want to go through all of them because it's really good stuff. So a lot of people are responding to what's happening now by offering things. And you know, if you don't know, you don't know. So check out Roz's what are you calling it? Is it a list?
yes. So I'm calling this Stay Home Edition. Stay
Stay home list.
part of
Yeah,
Murphy
it's really good.
blog. And so, and you're right. And so I'm really fortunate. And I think all of us kind of see some of those come through. I'm really fortunate because I have such a good group of friends who like I see content from Lamonia, Letitia, a couple of different writers groups I'm in. And so I see that and like I collect it. And so I do think some of
Yeah.
us may see like the courses coming out, but we might not see the film or we
Right.
might not see, hey,
Right.
there's 2,500 museums that you can go visit virtually. So as I see
Right.
things on Facebook and in my groups, I curate that and kind of have some nice offerings for you for the week. So thanks for the
Definitely. Definitely. Really good offerings.
thank you. And so Sekou is one of the creative entrepreneurs that I featured in the latest one. And I really want him to talk about Brown Boy Mad. You know, I'm really pausing because I want to make sure I say mad.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
know there was a different title.
Me too.
And I did, you know, I've watched a couple different versions of it. So I guess if you can just kind of share with folks, like, your inspiration, how you, you know, started this, and we can talk about the doc, and then I also want to talk about your play at Fisk University.
Right. Yeah, so it's such a long story, and I haven't figured out how to tell the short version yet, but I'm going to give it a go.
Okay.
So essentially, Brown Boy Mad is a combination of creative efforts. It's one thing made up by a bunch of smaller things. And so one of those things is a film, a short film
Yeah.
that centers around driving while black.
Mm.
And so it's one of my experiences driving while black. And for those folks who don't know, one of my many hats that I wear is being an automotive test driver. So that means that essentially my job is to drive cars and write about them. And during one of those test drives, I had this altercation. Yeah, it's fun. It doesn't suck. It doesn't suck. It's a cool gig. But you know, it raises some issues. It has raised some issues for me as a black man in a number of different ways because I'm a black man and driving while black is a real thing, as a lot of us know. And so, you know, it's great to be able to test drive a Rolls Royce or a Bentley or an Aston Martin, but also I'm mindful of what that looks like and what might happen to me while I'm test driving those vehicles. Ironically, I was test driving a much less expensive vehicle when this altercation happened. I was test driving actually here in Nashville a few years ago, and my test drive partner and I were accosted by these white men, and not police officers, just white men who
Curious
wanted
man.
to observe.
I said
Curious,
curious
you
man.
said?
Curious.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Curious and aggressive,
Oh, okay.
and so anyway, I created a film product out of that. It wasn't really intentional. Like our goal that there was to shoot video about the car, but then this thing happened at the beginning of the shoot, and so the video ended up being about race and race-based assumption and driving while black and all of that. And so I did that some years ago now. That might have been maybe 2015.
Okay.
And then even before that, in the early thousands or late 90s, I was part of a spoken word theater experience where there were three of us, three black men who were writing and performing about our interaction with the N-word. And when that project ended and we went our separate ways, I wrote a one-man show based on my content from that show, but I never did anything with it. Like I tried, but life got in the way, and it ended up in a drawer somewhere, or on my hard drive, more specifically, and I never did anything with it. And then at the end of last year, I saw For Colored Girls, which was on Broadway until this just happened, till the coronation happened. And For Colored Girls, I mean, I think we're all familiar with that. For Colored Girls, we've considered Suicide When the Rainbow Is Enough by Ntozake Shange, is a choreo poem, a title that she herself invented. I didn't even know that until recently, but she created this title called choreo poem because she felt like no other title it embodied what she was doing. And so anyway, I saw that at the end of last year, and it reminded me of this one-man show I had written, because that show was also spoken word based. It was also choreo poem based. And so I kind of pulled it out and dusted it off, and I took it to Blackboard Plays. Shout out to Blackboard Plays. It's a really positive space for Black folks in the city who are doing something creative in the playwriting space. And I hadn't heard of them before.
And where are they located?
But I found out about them. Well, you can find them online. I followed them on social media at Blackboard Plays or just blackboardplays.com. Okay. And they usually have a monthly event. Recently, they've been doing it via Zoom. And the idea is, the concept was unfamiliar to me, but it's a familiar thing for people in the playwriting biz. What you do is you print out like 10 pages of your play, your manuscript, and you bring it to the physical event. And then you assign roles to actors in the space, but then they do a cold read. They get a couple of minutes to read what you got, and then they perform it. And that was a mind-blowing experience for me. First of all, because I'd never even heard of it. I've never done anything like that. But also because I just ended up jumping in with both feet. And then to hear my words, my poems that were autobiographical be read by someone else with just as much, if not more, passion, really expanded my mind for the possibilities. And so then, I came home for Christmas with all that in my head. And home is here in Nashville, Tennessee. And I reached out to Fisk University to see what we could do, if we could do something. And we ended up doing quite a bit. We did 2 stage readings of my play called BrownBoyMad with the Fisk students playing me at various ages and stages of my life. So it was really, really a dope, fulfilling experience.
That's so cool. Yeah, I read a lot of on your website. You have a couple of different quotes, and people were just saying how powerful it was. And I believe one of the reviewers was mother of 3 boys. And, so being able to see, as you said, in the different stages of your life, having like the different experience of, being a Black man in America, Black man anywhere. And so people said it was very inspiring. And then they also loved the music. They just kind of loved that it was a serious topic, but also the way you wrote it was very lively and not comedic, but just, heartfelt. That, it's some of the tough times we do have to not laugh about it, but make light of it. So I think you actually, in that, people said you had an awesome balance of telling the story and it being powerful, but also, also having those light moments. Yeah.
So you said a lot of things. You said a lot of things just now. And I kind of want to respond to as many of them as I could think of. So shout out to Litriana. That's the woman you're talking about with the 3 boys. She lives here in Nashville. And I want to paraphrase what she said. I hope I get the phrasing right. I think she said visual vernacular. There in the event afterwards, during the talk back, she mentioned this idea of visual vernacular. And she said that this is something that she teaches her boys, or she's taught her boys about their whole lives. In other words, being mindful of how you appear. And this is something that like dovetails with what Brown Boy Mad is at a few different points, right? Not only at the beginning, like, 20 some odd years ago when I wrote this choreo poem, but also now with these fifth students reading my words and then telling me their stories that are so similar and equally heartbreaking. Like there's no, it's like a time warp. Like even though this content was created 5 years ago and 20 years ago, there's no difference in terms of our experiences.
Right.
And so in the film that I was just talking about a few minutes ago, the person I was interviewing with, Maurice Rush, shout out to Maurice Rush, I was asking him questions about race and what was going on with him as a black father of a black male child. And he talked about something that had just happened, I think a few weeks ago at the time. This was 5 years ago. But he was talking about his substitute teacher and how his substitute teacher had assumed his son to be other. Let's just use a nice gentle word like other, because his son was wearing a hoodie. And so the substitute automatically assumed who he was based on how he looked. Right. And that's the same thing we see all the time. We saw with Eric Garner, with Mike Brown, in all of our daily lives. Well, maybe not all of our daily lives, but often we see that refrain. And that's what happened to me and my friend with the car, me and Rush with the car. That's what happened to me when I bought my first car, which I wrote about in the show. So it's just like the timelessness of it is both very poignant and very sad.
And so when you're writing this, are you thinking about getting your experience out, but do you have in your mind a call to action? Because one of the things I think when we show these kind of things, we're kind of preaching to the choir, right? We already have folks who are already supportive and get it. So how can we get, the folks who we need to see this, or, how do we get those people? How do you get that out there? So I'm going back to my original question. Do you even have that in mind? Or it's really about, let me get out my story. And then you think about what the call to action is.
So it's actually both. It's actually both things that you just said. Because again, I wrote it as a one-man show and I always envisioned just getting out there and doing it myself. And so all of this is brand new. The fact that there are other people playing me, the fact that there's college students playing me, the fact that there's now music, as you mentioned earlier, the fact that it's growing exponentially has made me just take a pause and feel like, all right, so this is in development. Let me see where it's going, how big it gets. But at the same time, it was always the goal to take it past the church. We preach to the choir, but so it's always the goal to take it beyond the church. Mm-hmm. And that's why I infuse so much humor. That's why there's so many jokes in there, because one of the reviews on my website is by a white woman who watched it. And I think she might be the first white woman to see the show at all. Oh. And she had a really positive response. And yeah, you have to be a certain kind of person to have a positive response. But I think I've taken the edge off of it by making it funny. And so it's not as in your face as some other ways of communicating about race are. It's a little more acceptable. A little more acceptable.
It's like you said, it was 5 years ago, but we continue to have these experiences. And now with COVID-19, the Asian community, they're getting the ridiculous that's coming from, higher up. So it's across the board, but definitely Black men. But one of the projects that I worked on last year was with the tech company and Van Jones. And so what wasn't known when Prince was alive was that he started an organization for techies. So he was really, I think, as most of us, just disheartened by Trayvon's Martin death. And so when he was having a conversation with Van Jones, he was like, why does this happen? And he's like, I'm tired of hearing about race. What can we do about it? And so he was like, why is it that you see a Black boy with a hoodie and you have the stereotypes, and then you see a Mark Zuckerberg and it's like, oh, he's creative, that. And so he really thought about, yes, it is racism, but how can we make the how can we make it equal opportunities? So it can be that when you see a black man with a hoodie, like, you know, it's so many different things. I think one of the things I remember you telling me too, when we first met, how people thought they would ask you if you're a basketball player because of your height. So the name, you know, it's like, okay, you're a black man. If you're doing well, you're a basketball player, you're a sports guy.
Right.
So all of those stereotypes. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So my angle is microaggressions, mostly. Like, I'm mostly talking about microaggressions. So those small indignities, like, we all know the really big ones that are obvious, but I like to talk about the ones that aren't so obvious. Like you just mentioned, you know, the idea of people asking me if I'm a basketball player, and I've experienced that my whole life. And then there's so many though. There's so many, you know, like I remember one time not too long ago, I was flying first class and the white guy next to me asked me if I was a rapper. And I was like, you know, really? Really? Are you? Because you're in first class too. Are you a rapper? Like, what? You know, so these kinds of, you know, race-based assumptions are really rampant. And that's what I'm mostly trying to address, the microaggressions, and calling them out specifically so that people who aren't in the choir can say, oh, that's something I do. I'm not supposed to do that? No, you're not supposed to do that. You're not supposed to do that.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, I think, yes. And so I've been seeing a couple of comments and they were going through, but I did see, I want to ask the question, right? I don't see any more, but Marvin asked a question about how do you stay positive? You know, how do you stay positive in this kind of climate or in crises when this happens? And so you guys talked, I mean, when you first started the story, you talked about just, you know, test driving a car. And this gentleman comes up. And I always kind of feel like we sometimes are being the people who are always have to be calm and teaching away. So to Marvin's question, how do you continue to be positive and or de-escalate the situation?
Yeah, you know, I think that's a moment by moment response. I think that just happens in the moment because we weren't calm when they first rolled up. We weren't calm. We weren't hospitable. like, you know, it got tense real fast. And it didn't, I know I didn't start de-escalating until he reached for a gun. And now I got to think about whether or not I'm going to survive this situation, right? And so I think there's that. You got to decide what you have to do to get home, right? And then once we decided what we had to do to get home, like it sticks with you. And then you have to figure out what to do with it. And so in my case, I called the car company and said, look, this is what happened. Yeah, I was supposed to write about the car, the rack and pinion steering, and the CD system, but this is what happened. So this is what it's going to be about. I'm not asking, I'm telling you, this is what it's going to be about because this was my experience. And being able to create that creative product was helpful to me. And it was helpful to get it shown. I took that film as a short to a couple of different film festivals, and I had people respond to it in real time. And so it helped all of us kind of vent our frustrations around that. But I think me specifically. And so at the beginning of my experience here at Fisk University, I hosted a lecture where I talked about turning rage into creative work. Like, because these things continue to happen, and what you do with that inside you determines who you become as a person. Like, you can let it eat at you inside, or you can channel it some way. So I was talking about channeling it, and then it turned into me helping them channel it through my words, which was just a blessing.
That's good. And can you share, I've seen, like I said, really great reviews on your website and then also on Facebook. Can you share some of the students that were in the play, like their experience? I guess, did you see kind of like a shift from when they were reading and then they actually had the play on the stage? Did you get any, you know, like feedback from the students, or did you kind of, you know, what did you see change, or, you know, what kind of reaction did you receive?
Yeah, that's a good question. But before we go any further, I want to shout out to Miss P. Miss P is the drama teacher at Fisk University. She just popped in.
Hello.
So she popped in just in time to hear this response. I'm sorry. I call her Miss P, Professor of Elder Interest. So it was an interesting experience, and it evolved. And so one of my favorite stories, and there's a lot, but one of my favorite stories is at an early rehearsal, well, maybe the first rehearsal, I had given the students the script ahead of time, but I didn't realize until rehearsal that they hadn't read it. And that's no diss. I discovered over time that the students I had were the super students. Like, they are like mega students. Like, just to give you an example,
Good.
one of them performed at the Ryman Center, which is like, that's just like the Javits Center in New York, right? So she performed at the Ryman Center while I was here. Like, they're just super students. So anyway, it wasn't this, they were just doing other things.
Yeah.
And so they were reading the script in real time during rehearsal. And then they started bickering over who was going to get which part. And that was amazing to me that, you know, we're talking about my life experiences. And they were like, oh, no, that's me right there. I called it. I called it, though. I called it. And so there was that interaction where I was discovering that my experiences from way back when were universal enough that they were arguing over who was going to play which part. Awesome. And that was really, really exciting and empowering and sad for me. You know, that there's that timelessness again, that these experiences are so universal. And they all shared with me their own personal stories that are like mine. I won't share them because they didn't share them on stage in front of the audience, but they all of them told me heartbreaking stories from right now. And you know, we want to think that things have gotten better. We want to think that things have changed. But as soon as we started delving into this subject matter and they started telling me their stories, it was like, you know, there was a whole other play inside their experiences that needs to be written.
Yeah, I saw earlier, about 2 minutes ago, Lavera had mentioned, she says 5 years, 50 years. It doesn't seem like a lot has changed. It's the same experiences. And that's why I kind of think about, it's getting your stories out is one part, but especially when it's documentary, you do have a sense of, okay, I'm telling the story, but what is the action? What is the call to action? What do I want people to get out of this? And so have you thought about that? You know, and I'm sure, and shouldn't say I'm sure, but maybe what you thought in the beginning has shifted and changed over the 5 years.
You know what? 5 years ago and 20 years ago, it was really more about me getting that angst out of my system onto the page first and then onto the stage so that it wasn't ripping me apart. But now in this new iteration, yeah, I see a path. I see a path to, you know, churches beyond our churches. And there's a talk back after every performance, and the talk backs often last almost as long as the show itself. And right now the show is around 60 minutes. Mm-hmm. So that's saying a lot. People have a lot to say, you know, and people want to take it to different places. I think fundamentally what makes my thing a little bit different than some others is it's personal. Like, I'm talking about things that have happened to me specifically.
Right.
And so that makes it harder to argue with. Like people can argue about race and racism, does it exist or not, kind of, you know, in a overarching way. But when I tell you that this is what happened to me and this is how it affected me, then there's nothing to argue with, really. Like, you just have to accept my interpretation of events. And so it makes it an easier conversation to have, you know. So I think that's my entry point. I'm giving the audience beyond our audience an easy access point, because often within our audience and outside, people have this reaction. Oh, but you're so whatever, you know, you're educated, you're all those, you know, accolades. Yeah. Those typical things, meaning that I defy the norm that they would expect these kinds of things to happen to. And so I think that's the point, though. It happens to all of us. Right. And so I think once it goes out there, once I figure out what it is and how to shape it, I think the next thing to do is to take it wide and let people just see themselves in the show and be like, oh, I see. That's not something I should do. And, oh, that's something that happened to him personally. Wow. even though all these other things, even though he would seem like he would have a life where this wouldn't affect him, I think that hits people beyond our circle quite a bit. I think that resonates with them.
I remember, God, this has to be like 20 years ago. I remember Eddie Murphy sharing a story how he was in a limousine and there were some kids shouting the N-word, and he rolled down the window and they were like, Eddie! Like, they're all excited to see Eddie Murphy. But when they just saw the black face, the black man, it was like, and he's like, and he was stuck. You know, and he
Right.
shared that in an interview. He was like, yeah, like they were saying the N-word, and then they said, oh, Eddie, hey, it's you. Like, it just completely
Right.
shifted of what they were saying.
Oh, good Negro.
Yeah,
A famous Negro. Let's get a selfie. Let's get a selfie, Eddie. Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's that weird thing where they can love us from a distance and love our culture and love the dopeness of us. I mean, because we some dope people. Have you seen these masks we've created? The mask alone, like we are stepping through communication heavy.
I said we now have like mask bling, like bling mask. You know, it's like we're gonna do it up. Like we gotta wear the mask. We're gonna do the mask, right?
I saw a sequin mask. Sequins. We doing it. So anyway, so before we get too far off on a tangent, so we do dope, interesting things, and then they emulate those dope, interesting things, but then kind of shut down when the conversation turns to race. And I think that's the beauty of Brown Boy Mad, that it's not just my experience, because I had the students write some of their own experiences into the play itself, so that it's all of our experiences. So it's universal. And I should point out that there were women who portrayed me in this show, Brown Boy Mad. And that wasn't my intention when I arrived at Fisk University. Matter of fact, at one of the early meetings, a Fisk student said, hey, so do you have any roles for women? And I was like, nah, I mean, this is autobiographical. It's my life. So no shade, but no, it's my life. And it just so happened that she was mad persistent. Every time she saw me on campus, she'd be like, so there's no roles? There's like zero. Okay. You got any other roles to play? Right? And then after a while, it dawned on me, especially after the students started telling me their stories that are similar to mine about microaggressions and racism, that our stories are the same. There's that universality. And so then I opened it up to female actors, and it really expanded the work so much bigger than it was in my head to have it played by both genders. Because there's no end and no beginning. There's no end where I am and a beginning where they begin. It's like it's all seamless, all of us in these experiences together. And that was really, really important for me to see.
I love her persistence.
Oh yeah, quiet, low key, like some.
And then I'm sure you also encouraged her to tell her story, right? So it's like, are there roles for me here? But also seeing that hopefully she will start to tell her stories. Well, for me, being a Black woman, I am in Black organizations and also women organizations and other organizations. Right. Interesting, because one of the things I especially say over the last 5 to 10 years has been a lot of focus on women equality, women equality as far as pay, and that's very important. But I think what's interesting for me when I'm in those spaces, and it's a few women of color, and when race comes up, it's a little bit of tension, not always, and I'm like, we can openly talk about sexism, and we can talk about women issues, and women need equality, and women need to be paid the same, but something happens. And I actually remember being at a women's event the year that the Trayvon Martin happened. And literally, I don't know if it was, I don't want to say the wrong thing, so it was kind of silent, but I see that. And so, so we have those different things. And then, of course, about the hair. So when I work in corporate America and, you change the hairstyle, it's like, oh, it's fascination. But when you work for a Black company, that's just what you do. You just changing your hair. It's short today, it's long tomorrow, it's braids. But, the fascination of that, those have been my two things, I would say, in corporate America. It's been the hair, and then always like, okay, yes, I'm working with the women, cheering up the women, trying to get more women executives and working on those task force. But when I mention race, it's like, oh, wait a minute. So, I do want to get to a comment Ammonia made. She asked, how how are you going to get your story out to Black kids that need to hear it that are not in college? So right now it's great because you're at Fisk University, but what happens to those? What happens to those folks those young kids who are not in universities?
So I should clarify, it happened at Fisk University. They lent me their resources and their stage, but it was a public event both times. So the general public came of all ages. And it was just a blessing that Fisk was willing to lend me their resources in that way. And that's the way I would like to continue it. I would like for the HBCUs to be the conduit through which we get it to the public, to the general public. And so I'm kind of doing two things. Like I am promoting this work, but I'm also promoting HBCUs. Like people had to come to Fisk University to see the play, but then they got to be there. And I donated 100% of the proceeds of the play to Fisk University. Oh. So Fisk University gets to benefit financially as well. And that's my vision. I would like to keep moving the play from HBCU to HBCU. You can come see it for free. Please give a donation, but 100% of those proceeds are going to the school so we can kill two birds with one stone.
That's very good. And I know that I think it was one or two other questions. So if I did not ask it, could you post it again, please?
Yeah. So while we're waiting for those questions, you mentioned the hair in corporate America, and I just want to talk about that for a second. I don't want to give anything away because I want people to see the show. But one of the pieces I wrote about was hair. And so I'm writing about it from my perspective as a Black man. And I had a male student and a female student fighting over that pice. And I thought that was fascinating.
That is.
Like, wow, that it transcends gender. And so I don't want to give it away. But it was really interesting to see how they both embodied it, separate from how I embodied it. But I will tell you what often happened for me, one of many things, is when I was working in corporate America, I had locks. And I got, people made a lot of assumptions. And so I can remember this one vividly. I was working as an assistant to a very high-powered white woman. And I think my first week, now, mind you, she's high-powered, so I have to look the part. I'm suited and booted, three-piece suit, tie. Like, I was squared away. I had locks. But I looked good, right? I had it all together. Yeah. So I was looking corporate. So this one of her coworkers comes in, and he sees me on my desk, and he pauses, and so I pause, and we're kind of looking at each other. And he says, "Are you here to fix the computers?" And I was like, there's a IT person dedicated to this floor 2 doors down. He was like, "Yeah." I was like, so he's here, that guy, that white guy is here to fix the computers, but no, I'm not. So it's just the assumptions that are made based on hairstyles can be very interesting.
Okay. And so Lamonia did post her question again. She was saying her question is really asking about Black boys, men who will never step foot on a college campus, the people who actually are racially targeted because of their class in society.
Like, how do we get it to them? Is that the question?
Yeah. So how do we get that? How do we share?
That's what we're doing right now. Okay. That's what we're doing right now. Like we shot the play, we recorded it, and it's been screened a couple times on Sunday. I'm doing these weekly Sunday matinees. I've shown almost the full play twice, and then I've been making tweaks to it. Today was the 5th Sunday where I posted a snippet of the documentary. So essentially, because of Coronication, I'm gonna keep calling it that. I didn't make it up. I want to point that I didn't make it up, but I like it a lot. Because of Coronication, it is evolving from a play into a documentary. Okay. So the play is one thing, and now I've created this film product that encapsulates the play. And yeah, I'm just posting it online and letting people check it out. And it's just going to get bigger and bigger and better and better. And so the idea is not to restrict access at all. Like, I've already posted the play a couple times. It's just about figuring out the right balance of the right things. Because again, maybe I didn't say this, but it was a staged reading. So that means that the actors are sitting on stage with the script. They're reading it. Like the play is still in development. It's not at all finished. So we're still trying to figure out what it actually looks like, how it would be blocked, what the lighting is, what the movements are. So the idea is to move towards that. And then by the time we get there, there'll be a few different components. There'll be the physical play. There'll be the documentary. There'll be the soundtrack, which is kind of, which the new project is just kind of happening spontaneously. So there'll be all these pieces, but they'll be all widely available to everyone.
No, I definitely see that you're definitely making that it's about community outreach. And I think for the question, like I think about even some of my relatives who live in Brooklyn, who will kind of know of things but may not see it or go online. They have certain, maybe they're on Instagram or Snapchat or TikTok, but they're not really knowing about the play. So I see that the community outreach is there, but to Lamonia's point, there are folks who still are missing because maybe they have they're mobile, but they don't have access to a laptop or stuff. So you're doing the right thing, but I see it expanding. And I also think when you see things like this, you do have like word of mouth, like bring a friend, like grab a friend or a family member, right?
Right.
So it's
and you and I have been talking offline before the chat about the film portion. Like the idea right now is to create this documentary and then send that to film festivals and get it out there in the world where there's easier access. So that there's no barrier to entry on any level. That's the goal.
Good. And I also saw Lavera said, how generous of you to donate those funds. So thank you.
I'm going to tell a little bit of a story. So when I arrived, Miss P, I don't know if she's still watching, but she offered, first she said that I could keep the door, the donations. I could keep that money for me as, to pay me for my time, pay myself for my time. And then it was like, I could give a donation to them. But over the course of time, when I saw how important this was for me, how enriching it was for me, how much the play was growing and expanding beyond my original vision, I didn't even feel comfortable taking a cent. And so not only did I make the announcement that I was giving 100% of the proceeds to the Fisk University Stagecrafters, which is their drama department, I also reached out to my Morehouse brothers and asked them to contribute. So we ended up donating a wardrobe. They needed a wardrobe to hang their costumes on. So we donated that. We donated food for, like my Morehouse brothers came through. We donated food, the wardrobe, and some bar stools, some other things. Like we gave them like some things that helped like make me feel like what they did for me was paid back in some way, in some small way, because that experience was priceless. It has been priceless.
So we have a great question from Digital Sheila. Hey, Sheila. So how is this multimedia project being funded, especially since donations go directly to HBCU? So so how can people support and how is it currently being funded?
Yeah, that's a good question. So there is no formal support. Like I just been self-funding it, but people keep asking me that. So what has been happening is, if you go to my website, which is SekouWrites.com, you'll see the film and you'll see how to donate directly to Fisk Stagecrafters. You'll also see how to donate directly to me. So I am still trying to raise money for Fisk University Stagecrafters, but I'm not going to say no if somebody wants to send me some money. I'm not going to say no. Like I feel like this is an important enough project that I'm not going to stop. I'm going to keep pushing whether I have the money or not. But definitely, like it takes time and energy and resources. And if there are people who can help me with that, please, by all means. I also have a list of things that I need that are not monetary. And kind of checking things off that list would be really helpful too. So far, my Morehouse brothers have been helping me with that. But if people want to get involved, yeah, please let me know. And we can all make this happen together.
Yes, and I hope I say this right. Champ Pete said, yes, please support your HBCUs. COVID is going to hurt them so much. We are going to see some close their doors for good. that's disheartening. But
Yeah.
as I was sharing at the beginning, DJ D Nice is actually doing a fundraiser at this moment. So I want you guys to go and jump on. He is playing live, and they're asking for donations for some of the HBCUs. And then again, Lavera shared, you know, as you give, your blessings increase. So thank you. And let's,
Yeah, I appreciate that.
you know what I do?
And I don't.
No, go ahead. You got time. Go ahead.
So I don't want to make things too sad, but on that same note, some of the students I worked with didn't want to go home. Like, you know, sometimes the college escape is the escape.
Yes.
And so we don't know what those stories are, but that's why I'm still raising money for Fisk University Stagecrafters, because even though the play has quote unquote ended for now, like I want there to be this pocket of money available to these students for whatever they need, you know, because we don't know.
That's real. I think that was one of the reasons, specifically in New York. I know they were talking about at first not wanting to close the schools because so many students depend on that meal. So many students depend on the meal. So many shut-in folks depend on the meal. So they do have those schools open where people can come and get lunches. So I definitely understand, like, the situation at school is better than home sometimes.
Yeah,
but
sometimes.
I wanted to, I think we have about 10 more minutes before we shut down, but I want to talk about Rocks by Sekou. Because I just think it's fabulous. And I see you, you know, posting with your celebrity folks, but also I know it's tied to the film. So I would like to kind of hear the connection of that.
You know what's funny? I'm glad you asked that, because these things live in my head. You know, it's like there's like a compound where all the things live together. And so I sometimes forget when I'm talking to other people, the other people don't know that they're all connected. And so, yeah, I make jewelry, but I make jewelry because of racism, essentially. Like, I didn't just like wake up one day and decide I wanted to start making jewelry. So at the beginning of our chat today, I was talking about this test drive that I had that turned sour when these white hillbillies accosted us, right? And it turned into this documentary. And then I decided, all right, so it's like, you know, a 3-minute documentary at the time. And today it became a 6-minute documentary. But I was thinking, well, maybe I'll make a full-length documentary. So I created a GoFundMe to raise money to turn it into a documentary. And it was written about in the Huffington Post, which is great. Huffington Post mentioned that you didn't get anything if you gave to my fund. You didn't, you know, receive anything back. So I thought, all right, maybe I'll address that. And I hired someone to make bracelets. Like, if you donate to the documentary, you get a bracelet. So the challenge with that in the beginning was I was buying the bracelets, but I was giving them away. So at the back of my mind, I was thinking, all right, at some point I got to drive the cost down because, you know, I'm losing money. So it took a while, and I kept asking people to make bracelets, and lots of people said yes, but just that wouldn't work out for whatever reason. And I swear the only reason I even thought about making a bracelet was to create bracelets to sell to fund this documentary, which has now become BrownBoyMad. That's it. And how I learned was watching YouTube. And just like a few months of watching YouTube in the background while I did other things. And in the beginning, I was like, I can't do that. That's so complicated. But I kept watching them, and I kept watching them, and I kept watching them. And after a while, I was like, you know what, maybe I can do this. And so I made one bracelet, and I posted it on Instagram. And I remember immediately someone asked me to make one. Yo, make me a bracelet. And I was like, no, I'm not. No, I'm making no bracelets. Right? I was so indignant. And that kept happening. People kept asking me to make bracelets. And I was like, yeah, nah, that's not what this is about. It's not about making jewelry. This is about funding this particular project. Mm-hmm. And so I'm making a long story long. I'm sorry. But what happened was there was this nonprofit that I wanted to honor because they were about fighting images of Black women in reality TV specifically, not just TV, but reality TV. And I thought that was really important. Yeah, that's really specific and important.
Very needed.
So I gave them an award and a donation. And in addition to the award and the donation, I decided to create bracelets for them, branded to them, that we could sell at the award ceremony to make money for them. And then after that, immediately, yo, can you make me something like that? And so finally this time I was like, all right, let me see where this goes. And then that was like maybe 4 years ago. And that initiative has just grown and grown. And because it was always about giving back, I kept that component of it. So I make bracelets, I sell them, I give 10% to different nonprofits and charities. And I'm about to bring it full circle and start contributing back to Brown Boy Mad through the sale of the bracelets. That's how it began. And now I'm just getting back to that. So you asked earlier about how people can support me. You can buy a bracelet. Like, I feel comfortable with that. You can buy a bracelet, and I'm going to use some of that money to fund Brown Boy Mad.
I love that. I didn't know that backstory, because you are really into the bracelets now. You're like, oh, what about this color? So I love it. And I think you posted Blair Underwood. Blair Underwood had one of your bracelets on. Okay.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, Blair has been a great customer. Shout out to Blair Underwood. He's been the best. I mean, he's been out here on TV wearing my stuff, on fleek, just laid out. And so I greatly appreciate him. And not only that, but he is one of the first people to get the new bracelet, which is the one that I'm wearing right now. It's a mix of chains and beads. And so this is the new.
That's
this
nice.
is the new, the jumbo chain.
As Digital Sheila asked, is that on your website? So I know it's Rocks by Sekou. Is it on that link on your website? Or is it separate?
Which link? For
this? I'm sorry, Rocks by Sekou. So how can people go purchase it?
Yeah. So Rocks by Sekou is a separate website for now, rocksbysekou.com. It's also a separate Instagram at Rocks by Sekou. You can also just Google it, ROCKS by Sekou, SEKOU, because there's been a little bit of press. And so if you Google it, you'll find all the things. There's a Facebook page, there's an Instagram page, there's a website. And there is some incorporation into my own stuff, the SekouWrites stuff. But it's a pretty strong brand by itself. And, I'm gradually kind of merging the two brands together, the brand of me and my bracelets, because I feel like I'm switching gears all the time, switching lanes all the time. But yeah, at Rocks by Sekou. I actually have more stuff posted on Instagram than I do on the website. And this is the new. This is like rolling out slowly. Blair Underwood is the first person to have one. It's actually a single strand. You want to see this? It's a single strand of chain and rocks all together. It doubles as a choker, right?
Okay, rocks.
And it loops around. It's a whole mood. It's a whole mood.
I'm trying to see here. It says you need to do Malawi. I hope I'm saying that right. Rocks.
Oh, Malawi rocks. Are they on here? Where they at? Shout out to Malawi. Shout out to Malawi. So it's kind of secret. What's happening with me and Malawi is kind of secret. We haven't announced it yet, but I have a relationship with Malawi Plant Oil. It's a CBD company based here in Nashville. And there's an announcement coming out about that real soon. But I am working on a Malawi bracelet. It's going to have a little secret compartment for whatever you want to store in your secret compartment. No judgment, no shade, however you rolling. But shout out to Malawi. Follow them on Instagram at Live Malawi.
Yay. We have a lot of, Sekou, SekouWrites.com, Rocks by Sekou.
Are they putting it in there?
No, I didn't put it in there, but I'm just saying, I'm giving people.
No, they're writing it in there? You're saying it.
Yeah, I'm saying it.
Yeah, someone wrote SekouWrites.com.
Okay.
Oh, that's what's up. Good looking out.
What's up? So we got to promote that. We probably have 5 minutes. I did kind of want to leave the conversation a little bit balanced, right? A little happier. But do you have anything? So we gave a shout out where people can support. We gave the website. Is anything else you want to share about like the next project? So we know about your passion project, Brown Boy Mad, but anything else you're working on?
Yeah, I'm wearing a shirt. It says doing. And that's what I'm working on, and I'm encouraging other people to work on it. And it means different things to different people. It's actually an acronym. I haven't defined it, but the idea is do something. That's really the idea. And I've been on that since the end of last year, and that has resulted in all these things, these various things. Malawi, BrownBoyMad, the new iteration of Rocks by Sekou, and someone put the website in there. Good looking out, rocksbysekou.com. I see you.
Awesome. Awesome.
Live
Thank
Malawi
you.
at Live Malawi at Live Malawi on Instagram. So yeah, so doing is what I'm into. I actually created this shirt for me, just as a reminder that I need to be doing. So when I look in the mirror, I can remind myself to get up and get after it. But people ask me about it, so I put that on my website too. It's on the Rocks by Sekou website. A few people have bought shirts, the doing shirts, and they've been posting pictures of them wearing them, which is really cool. And it means different things for different people. But whatever it is you want to do, you should be doing it, especially now in this quote unquote coronation. There's no excuses for not getting after it. There's no excuses.
And so I just want to say thank you, because you have been
doing job.
No, you have been inspiring us a lot. And I think once, and what I would just say as a friend is kind of seeing your journey in the last couple of months. I think when we're really vulnerable and kind of sharing what some of our challenges are, what some of our inspirations are. And I've seen you working out. I've seen you working on the play. And I see you like jump rope. And I'm like, yeah, where's my jump rope? So you're doing that on Facebook. You're doing it on Instagram. You're inspiring people. So thank you. And the last question I have is, I was on Facebook doing this, it was going around like list 10 movies, one movie a day that inspires you. If you could give me one or two, like a movie that over the years, maybe it's something that you saw 20 years ago, maybe something you recently saw that impacted you, that, you know, you still remember, you can see it and you can watch it 10, 15, 20 times.
Yeah. So I want to respond to both of the things you said. So first, you gave me props for being public. And I just want to point out that that wasn't easy. Like, I am that person that used to say, I don't post about working out. Like, that's too personal. Why would you do that? Like, I was that dude. And seeing other people do it still kind of made me uncomfortable. So it took a lot for me to post it the first time. The first time when I started working out on a regular basis, I posted it mainly for me as a sense of accountability. So when I go back and look at my social media, I'm going to see this post that I did it yesterday. I need to do it again today. Right. And it was hard. And then I had to just stay consistent with it. I just had to stay consistent with it. And the people that support that are going to come in waves. And I think it's important for other people who are beginning any kind of doing journey to know that, because they're not all going to stay with you. You expect that everybody's going to stay with you together at the same time in lockstep. And that's not what's going to happen. It's going to come in and out. And you're going to attract different people than you did at the beginning as you reach certain levels. And so now I've reached a level where the people I've attracted are on a different level.
1 minute.
Oh, 1 minute?
No, I saw before.
Oh, wait.
So you can keep talking.
So the movie.
It cuts us off. I just want to say thanks for everybody joining, but continue, and we'll go until it cuts us off.
All right. Well, so the movie is Rashomon. It's an old black and white Asian movie, and it's subtitled. And I love it because everyone in the movie has a different perspective, and that's a reminder that we all have different perspectives, and to be sensitive to other people's perspectives.
And give the name of the movie one more time.
Rashomon. Yeah, old movie.
Awesome. That's great. So thank you. This has been wonderful. And so I will save it and send it to you. And guys, if there were questions that you missed, definitely go check Sekou out on SekouWrites.com. He's on Facebook, Instagram. He's all over. Definitely support, please. Definitely support. Yeah,
and please support BrownBoyMad. That is, as Roz said, my passion project. I'm really excited about it. I'm going to keep pushing on it. So please help me out.
All right. Thank you. Good. Everyone's saying,
there it is. Rashomon. Thank you. Thanks for writing it in. Rashomon.
I love it.
Yeah, that movie.
Thank you, God's daughter. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah.
Great conversation. Follow Murphy Muse. You can find the link in my Instagram bio, and weekly content comes out, and hopefully we will have another conversation soon. Have a good evening.
Yay, thanks, Roz. I appreciate it.
Nice. Support HBCUs.
Absolutely.
Happy Sunday.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. Okay. Happy Sunday.
Bye.
Deuces.
Bye.
Deuces.
Bye.
Deuces.